Welcome to The It Factor. We're Jemmy and Nye, exploring a new blog post by Mr. Len Kaplan, CEO of CDML, a managed service provider in Queens, NY, offering network management, voice over IP, and unified communications as a service, cybersecurity, compliance, infrastructure as a service, cloud solutions, and Microsoft 365 and Azure solutions. If you're a small business owner or manage IT for a growing organization, this deep dive is for you. Okay, so that was a mouthful. That opening list is packed with acronyms.
Yes.
But don't worry, they all really boil down to the core services that keep a modern small business running.
Securely and smoothly.
Exactly. So for context, when we talk about CDML, we're talking about a company that helps you manage your technology remotely. And when we mention things like voice over IP...
Or VoIP.
Right, VoIP, that's just your phone service running over the internet. And UCAS, or UCAS, that's just putting all your communication tools, your chat, your email, your phone into one system.
They're the basic building blocks of a modern business. And today, we are diving into a concept that affects every single one of those systems. It's risk management during a crisis.
And the article we're unpacking is titled, "We'll Figure It Out: Why That Assumption Fails During an Incident."
That title really says it all, doesn't it?
It really does. I think every single business owner has said that. It's fine, we'll figure it out when some small problem comes up.
And that's a great attitude for growth. That can-do spirit is fantastic.
Yeah.
But the whole mission of this deep dive is to unpack why relying on that improvisation becomes, well, the single most dangerous and costly risk when a serious incident happens.
Like a data breach.
A data breach, a system failure, wire transfer fraud.
Yeah.
We're looking at why response efforts fail. And it's not because people are careless. It's because pressure and ambiguity and urgency all collide at once.
Okay, let's unpack this then. According to Mr. Kaplan's post, the whole thing starts with confusing two very similar sounding documents: a standard operating procedure and an incident response plan. For a small business, that sounds a little bureaucratic, doesn't it? Do you really need both?
It's a great question, and it gets right to the heart of the problem. You absolutely need both. And confusing them is a really costly mistake.
Okay.
Think of it this way. Your standard operating procedures, your SOPs, that's your recipe book, it describes how you do routine work under normal conditions.
Making a cake on a sunny afternoon.
Exactly. The SOP assumes all your systems are working, approvals are happening, everything's fine. It guides repeatable tasks, like onboarding a client.
So SOPs guide execution when everything is working as it should?
Precisely. Now, the incident response plan, the IRP, that's the instruction manual for when the lights go out.
Well, okay.
It defines the exact moment when normal work stops and a formal, coordinated crisis response begins. And IRP kicks in when assumptions break down, when information is incomplete, systems are failing, or you're under extreme time pressure.
So it doesn't guide how to do the work?
No, it governs escalation and control.
I see. So the real danger is that a business feels prepared because they've got this huge binder of SOPs. Their recipe book is full.
No.
But when a crisis hits, nobody knows when to put down the recipe book and pull the fire alarm.
And that hesitation, that little pause while your staff debates, is this big enough to bother the boss? That's what costs organizations so much time, so much money, and reputation. They're trying to use a normal recipe to put out a 5-alarm fire.
This is where it gets really interesting for me. Why does that phrase, "we'll figure it out," just completely fall apart in practice? The article lists a bunch of conditions that all happen at the same time during an incident, and they just cripple your ability to improvise.
It's a total human failure, but it's driven by a lack of structure. Think about what a real cyber incident feels like.
Chaos.
Total chaos. You've suddenly got incomplete or worse, contradictory information. One server is offline, another is reporting a weird login, and suddenly you get an email from the CEO's personal account asking about a weird payment.
And messages are flooding in from everywhere.
From multiple directions, and you don't know which ones to trust. Your normal channels, like your internal chat or email, they might be compromised themselves.
Or just down completely.
Exactly. And when that ambiguity hits, authority just evaporates. Who makes the call to pull the plug on a system? Who is supposed to call the lawyer or the insurance company?
And so people just freeze.
They freeze. Individual staff members hesitate. They're afraid they might overreact or, bother leadership with something that turns out to be nothing.
And they get stuck in that sunk cost fallacy, right? If I've already spent a half hour on this, I'll just try one more thing.
Before escalating. And that delay, that's the exact moment the attacker is getting deeper into your systems. That's the powerful conclusion from the article. Organizations that rely on improvisation aren't unprepared, technically.
Mm.
They're unprepared psychologically and procedurally.
Their staff don't have clear permission to stop thinking and just start escalating.
They don't have permission. That's the perfect way to put it.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. So let's pivot to the solution. If I'm a small business owner, maybe it's me, a finance manager, and 3 other people, what does a good IRP even look like? It can't be some 100-page legal document.
No, it can't. And it doesn't need to be. A well-designed IRP answers one very specific question. When does my individual judgment have to give way to a coordinated mandatory response?
So when do I stop trying to be the hero?
Yes, exactly that. For a small business, it just needs to clearly define a few things. 1, when staff must stop trying to fix it themselves. 2, who must be notified and in what order.
And how, especially if email is down.
Right, the method matters.
Yeah.
3, who's the single person in charge, the incident manager. And 4, which the article says is the most critical and most often missing part, the triggers.
Triggers. The article really hammers this point home. So if the goal is to eliminate that hesitation, how do triggers do that?
Triggers remove the need for an employee to guess if something is serious enough. Guesswork is the enemy. It causes delay. Triggers are objective, measurable conditions.
So there's no room for interpretation.
None. They require automatic escalation, period. It doesn't matter what the employee's opinion is. If you cross that red line, the IRP is active and the incident manager gets a call. No debate.
Okay, can you give us some real-world examples, something a small business owner listening right now could actually use tomorrow?
Absolutely. Think about where you're most vulnerable to financial loss or compliance failures.
Money and data.
Money and data. So an effective trigger could be any suspected credential compromise, especially for a bank account or an admin account. If you even think a password is stolen, that's a trigger.
Okay, that's a clear one.
Here's another. Any request involving sensitive data that comes with unusual timing or pressure.
Like a vendor emailing late on a Friday asking to change their bank account details for Monday's payment.
That is the classic example. The timing itself is suspicious. Another good one is any security alert from your systems that you can't confidently explain as benign in, say, 5 minutes.
So if your antivirus flags something and IT can't immediately say, oh, that's just the backup running, then you escalate.
You escalate. And a final one. Any weird request from an internal email account that's out of character, an employee suddenly asking for a huge wire transfer or demanding urgent access to executive files.
So the big takeaway is once a trigger is met, it's automatic. You don't debate, you don't second guess, you just follow the plan.
And that is what saves you. The cost of ambiguity of not having those clear triggers, it's severe. And the failures are so predictable.
So walk us through that. What are those predictable failures that happen when a company just relies on, we'll figure it out?
The chain of events is almost always the same. First, staff delay escalating because they're afraid of being wrong. They're worried about accountability.
They're being silly.
Right. Second, different teams, finance, IT, ops. They start acting independently. They're working from different incomplete information. So finance might be trying to approve a payment while IT is trying to block all external traffic. They're working against each other.
And meanwhile, the problem is getting worse.
Exponentially worse. And third, leadership finds out about the damage way too late. They often hear it from their bank or a regulator, not from their own team.
Which is a nightmare for compliance and your reputation.
It's a total disaster. And every time, the review after the fact shows that the warning signs were there. They were seen, but they were ignored because no one felt empowered to act.
Because there was no objective rule.
No rule set. Now you contrast that with an effective response. The staff escalate early, without fear. Decisions get documented. Containment starts immediately, even with incomplete facts. Escalation is seen as responsible behavior. It's the sign of a good employee, not a disruption.
That's a huge cultural shift. This isn't just an IT checklist item. It's an agreement across a whole organization about how you handle uncertainty when the pressure is on. You're empowering your people by giving them clarity when they're most confused.
That's it, exactly. IRPs aren't about predicting every possible scenario. That's impossible. They're about removing human uncertainty when the pressure is at its absolute highest. It's about giving your people documented permission to just pause, verify, and escalate without any fear of blame.
And as the article mentions, this is something that companies like CDML help organizations do. They help define those clear, realistic triggers, separate the routine SOPs from the crisis plans, and then get everyone on the same page.
They make sure finance and IT are reading from the same script when that alarm bell rings.
So a final thought for our listener.
If you're listening to this and you aren't 100% confident that your team has clear documented guidance for handling a suspicious request or an unexpected payment change or a potential impersonation, that uncertainty itself is a major measurable risk. You should start that conversation now before an incident forces you to improvise.
If you like this deep dive, please take a moment to click the thumbs up button. And remember that new blog posts from Mr. Kaplan and the CDML team come out every Tuesday and Thursday. We invite you to visit https://cdml.com and subscribe to our blog for more insights on network management, cybersecurity, and cloud solutions. Till next time.